Welcome to this live webinar presentation from Autodesk. I would like to begin by introducing myself. I am Matthew Holewinski, and I'm a technical consultant here with Autodesk. Through the marvel of modern web technology, you can join me for a quick overview of some of the 2D to 3D techniques that are available in bonzai3d for converting 2D drawings into a 3D model. Now, this is not a training session. You'll still learn a lot from this, but really it's geared more to highlight many of the features that are available in bonzai3d, and so we'll cover the material rather fast. The presentation should last about 30 minutes or less, and at the end we'll open it up for a question and answer session. So be sure to type those questions into your GoToWebinar control panel. I'll see those here, and I'll read those out loud, and then I'll try to answer those for you. Our presentation today is how do we convert 2D drawings into a 3D model. We'll actually recreate this villa type residence that you see here. This is the actual model that I built myself, and I built that by importing some 2D plan and elevation drawings and then using the tools in bonzai3d to construct the 3D model that we see here. And this was also rendered inside of bonzai3d also. Now, how is this done? Well, we started off by importing some 2D or 3D data. Now, if you import a file, a drafting file, it doesn't have to be from AutoCAD. It can be from any other program using any of the formats that are listed here. What we'll show next is how to take that 2D plan information and extrude that information into 3D solid walls. We'll look at some ways to quickly and efficiently do this. We'll also look at some techniques for inserting doors and windows into those walls. So we can do this dynamically or graphically. We'll also look at some techniques for numerically accurately positioning those windows. We'll also look at window components. It's a neat way to quickly place windows into the walls, and it automatically punches a hole into the wall for you. And these components can be moved around, they can be copied, and you can replace these windows with other style of windows. And we'll show you step by step how that's done. We'll also place standard type components, people, furniture, trees, all sorts of entourage items that come with bonzai3d. We'll look at some techniques to be able to place those into your scene, or we'll also look at ways that you can import entourage items from any other application out there. So perhaps the Anderson Windows, you can download some CAD symbols, you can go to the 3D Google Warehouse and import just about any type of file format into bonzai3d as a component that can then be placed in your scene. We'll also look at the stairs tool. We'll take the 2D plan information, and using the stair tool, we'll use that information to generate a parametric stair. We can just put in all the parameters. It automatically generates that stair for us. And we'll also look at some techniques that can be used to customize that stair after it's created and also conform to the 2D plan information. We'll also take a look at the roof tool. So we'll start off by importing a 2D roof plan, and then we'll use that data to construct a three-dimensional solid roof using the roof tool. And our goal is to end up with a three-dimensional solid model from those 2D drawings. Now, this is the actual solid model that was completed. We put some textures on there, we put some lighting, and we render this inside of Render Zone using global illumination. Here's some other views of this from some other angles. Here's a bird's eye view to look at the canopy up on top. And once we create that 3D solid model, you can see that there's other ways that we can explore that three-dimensional design using clipping planes and the section tool. We can cut live sections through our three-dimensional model to better visualize that design. Here's a clipping plane through the second story. And here's a view where we have multiple clipping planes turned on. And this is a working view. This is not just for visualization. It's also a design tool also, so you can actually model and still work with these clipped planes turned on. And once we have the model created, it's good, clean 3D solid geometry that can be used with any other program out there. So you can export that data out using any of the formats listed here. And you can also export image data. So if you want to cut some sections, do some renderings, hidden line renderings, whatever, you can actually take that image data, export it out to any of the formats to collage it with any other details that you have. So with that, let's see how we convert 2D drawings into a 3D model. We're going to begin by switching over and launching bonzai3d. Now here's bonzai3d right out of the box. I didn't change or customize anything here. So if you launch the trial version for the first time, or you're just launching bonzai3d, this is what you see. And so bonzai3d's strength is the 3D modeling aspect, so we can dive right into 3D modeling right now and build our own design. But in this webinar, we're going to do something a little bit different. We're going to import some 2D drawings first. You don't have to import drawings, but that's the focus of this presentation today. So we'll do that by using the File pull down. We'll do import option. So File Import, and when we choose that, we can just find the file that we want. Now I downloaded some drawing plans, so here's a first floor plan. I click open, and of course there's some settings we can change. Now I'm not going to change anything here, but the only thing I do want to mention is the fact that we can control the actual scaling. So we can set the project units that we want to work in, and we can set the format units of the actual file. So if we know that file was done in meters or centimeters, whatever, we can set that here and everything will come in at the proper scale. Now I'm not going to change anything here. I'm going to leave everything just at the defaults. I'll bring it in and everything should come in fine. Now to sort of double check that though, what I'm going to do is make sure we're at the proper scale. As I import that in, maybe zoom into the doorway here, I can use the measure tool, which is right here. I click on that measure tool, I can just click a couple points here. So I zoom in over here, click on the endpoint there, and then I snap to the endpoint over there, and you can see it's roughly 3 feet, so I know that that's coming in at the proper scale. If that wasn't at the proper scale, then of course I could re-import that and change those format settings. Now at this point, the thing I want to mention is that when you import an AutoCAD file, you can see, or wherever the plan came from, all the lines and splines and arcs and everything's there as if it was drawn right here in bonzai3d. Now this project was organized in layers. I'm going to turn off the objects palette here. I'm going to work just in the layers because that's how it was originally created. And you can see that the same layering scheme that was in the original file is all imported into Bonsai. First thing we're going to do is extrude the walls. So let's find the layers that include information for the actual walls. And that's a little tip or trick that if you have access to the original plan and you're exporting it to bring it into Bonsai, just export just what you need. So at this point we have just the layers turned on that have the wall information, and what we need to do is take this wall information and extrude it into a 3D solid wall. So what we'll do is use the extrude tool, which is located right here. And there's some questions coming in I'll answer at the end, but he's talking about, can you import scanned and TIFF JPEGs? Sure, yeah, I'll definitely talk about that at the very end here. At this point I'm going to take the extrude tool and just take by clicking on these elements here and extruding them up. Now at this point, these are all separate lines. I mean, that's pretty much standard for a drafting file, right? It's just a bunch of lines and splines, right? So if I extrude each of these separate objects up, I'm getting a bunch of separate surfaces. This is not going to be a solid wall, so this is not what I want to do. So let's undo a few steps back. And so what I'll have to do is join all these together so it forms a single closed shape. So there's a set of line editing tools which are right here. So even though it's a 3D modeler, we have a set of tools that are specifically for working with 2D plan information or 2D lines. So we can join, break, and trim lines, things like that. Let's use the join line option. You can see I can join those two lines together. I can join those two lines with that line. I can join that joined group of segments with this line over here, and I just keep joining those lines together. Now notice as I join those together, I click on those two, it ends up forming a single closed shape. So now if I use the extrude tool now and click on that closed shape and pull it up, you can see that extrudes as a single object into a solid wall. I can do this graphically or dynamically, or look up on top here in the numeric input pellet. It's always giving me information. It's always giving me numeric information of what I'm currently doing. So at any time as I'm dragging this up, I just type in a number, type in 10 feet, enter. I never have to highlight fields or anything because it's always keeping track of what I'm doing. So I can just type a number at any time. So we know that wall was extruded 10 feet, and the tool options, let's just go and modify that wall whenever we want. All right, now the next goal is we need to take and do that same thing over and over again with all these other lines that are there. And this file isn't that big, but there's probably lots of lines there, and I could be joining a lot of lines together. And of course on larger, more complex projects, you don't want to sit there for an hour joining lines. So I'm always looking for ways to speed things up. So what I'll do is I'll do a Command A to pick everything. On the Windows machine, it's Control A. On Mac, it's Command A. It just picks all my objects. And then what I could do is pick the Join tool, and I click a blank area. And somehow it magically looks at whatever I currently had picked and tries to find a series of closed type segments. So it joins all those together. It's just that easy. Now, we notice, this is very common, some of the lines aren't closed shapes over here. So based on the person that was drafting the file, we're missing a segment here, missing a couple segments over there, and so I don't know where those segments are. Maybe they're on a different layer, maybe they're put on the wrong layer, maybe forgot to draw it there, maybe it's part of the window layer, I don't know. But there's a couple quick ways to fix this. So what we can do is use the close line option. So if there's just an opening there, I use the close line, which is right here. I click on that line segment, it automatically closes it at the end. So now it's shaded. I can see that's a closed shape. Now this one is missing more than one edge, and so it joined all those lines and that one, but we're going to have to draw some additional lines to fix that up. So I'll use the vector line tool. I can make it a 2D line, and I can draw a couple lines there and then join those together. Let's do this even faster. What I'm going to do is turn the insert option on. So what I'm going to do with the insert, if I snap to an existing line, it'll actually insert the vector line into that existing shape. So it shows the controls if I want to change that, escape to get rid of those controls if I want. So let's add another vector line here. See the little plus sign that's telling me I'm going to insert it or add it to that existing line. So there, I don't have to go back and join these later. I can insert it right as I'm drawing those shapes. So now you can see I got a closed boundary. And so now we can go in and have that closed shape there. Let's see, what are we going to do now? We're going to take all these 2D shapes here and extrude them up into solid walls. Now to do that, we can extrude these one by one using the extrude tool, or of course I'm looking for faster ways, so I'll do a Command A, I'll grab all those 2D shapes, click and drag with the extrude tool to pull all those up. I can type in a number, or if I take my cursor and snap it right to the top of this wall over here, then you can see that the height of all the walls I'm extruding will be snapped to that same height value. And we need to do some doors and windows, right? So the 2D plan had the window information in there, if I turn that layer on, but you can see that when we extrude the wall shapes, I mean, it doesn't really have the elevation data in there. So there's a few different ways we can do this. Actually, there's many ways to do this. I only have time to show a few here. And these are the more common ways that this is done. Here's one way to add some doors and windows into the existing walls that we have here. We can see there's a door right there and a window right there. We can use the reshape tools to sort of sculpt in the door or window into those walls. We can use the offset segment. I can just click on the bottom edge of the wall here and drag it up. I can click it anywhere I want, or I can type in a number. Let's type in 7 feet. Then I use the reshape. I'll click on the face that's here. If I reshape the face, you can see I can push inward to subtract volume. Or you can see I can pull it out and it'll actually add volume. So I'm reshaping the object by just reshaping that face. I snap it to the other wall, and there is our opening for the door. There's two different walls here, two different solid objects. If we want to union those together, since this is a true solids modeler, we can use the union tool. We can use the Boolean operations to union these two pieces together. So I click the union tool, click on this wall, I click on the other wall, and they're union together to one single solid object. Now if I zoom in over here, we can create the window using the same type of techniques. I can take the vertical edge and offset that and snap it to my 2D plan so that this face is the same width as the wall right here. Then I'll offset the bottom segment of that wall up whatever the distance is. I'll type in 4 feet, enter. And then I'll use the reshape and take that face that I've just offset it in there and drag it over to this wall over there. And then of course, just like I did previously, I can use union to union those walls together. And just keep going on and on. At this point, I think you get the idea of how we can quickly reshape the window and door information into those existing walls. Now here's one more thing I want to show you. As I reshape this, notice as I pull it out, since these walls are already joined, I'm actually reshaping this face back onto itself. And notice it automatically heals it. You won't have intersecting faces or things like that, or geometry that's not clean. Bonzai automatically uses real-time Boolean operations for the reshaping process. Enough of that method. Let's look at a different way that we can insert doors and windows. We'll go to this wall over here. A different method would be to just draw the shape that we want for the actual window or door. And we can just use the drawing tools. Use the rectangle tool. We're going to extrude the rectangle, and the insert option is on. So you can see if I click on the front face here, I can draw any shape that I want, pull it out. I'm adding volume to the object. Push it inward, I'm subtracting volume from the object. So we can just draw with the drawing tools and add and subtract volume to our walls that are there. Now that's not where we want the window. We have to conform to our 2D plan here. So let's undo, and let's look at some ways that we can numerically accurately position these windows exactly where they need to be. First thing I'm going to do is use the reshape tool, snap this wall to this one over here, and then take this wall, snap it over there. And the reason I'm doing this is if I union these walls together, and then union those together, those openings are now gone, so I sort of filled in those gaps. So now all I have to do is draw my shape on there. Now there's a couple different ways of making sure it's accurately positioned. One method would be to use guides. So I can use the guide tool, which is located right here. Okay, and with that guide tool, what I'm going to do is just click 2 points anywhere. So I click on the bottom of the window frame right here and click in the top direction. There's a guide right there. I can click 2 edges on the end of the wall here. So let's click 2 edges right there. So the guide that's on the bottom of the wall there, I can take that guide and move it straight up, whatever distance I want. I can type in a value, whatever. And now you can see that's positioned where I need that to be. So I go to the rectangle drawing tool and I can snap right to the intersection of those guides. I can type in numbers for the length and width or put some other guides in there and then just punch that through just like that. So that's one way of drawing using guides to make sure it's accurately positioned. Now, those guides are really infinite guides that extend through the scene. They're like construction lines. You can move them, rotate them, put them on layers, turn them on and off, or just delete them if you don't need them. Now the second method would be to type in values. So if I were to click on the rectangle tool, notice that as I put my cursor on that face of the object, that becomes my drawing grid. And so all my numeric information is based on that drawing surface. So if I go up here, you can see up in the numeric input palette, here's the X, Y, and Z values. So I can type in values of the X and Y position of where that thing is. It's either in 3D space or on the current plane that I'm on. So if I click the plane option, then these are the X, Y, Z positions on that plane. So now if I'm on this plane or on this plane over here, you can see I can just type in values. Now here's 2 little tips for you here. Whenever I move the cursor, it moves the plane. If you tap and release the F5 key, it locks your drawing grid on that plane. So I can move the cursor anywhere that I want, and notice that that plane is locked. And the little lock symbol is down here. Press and release the F5 again. I sort of tap it, and the F5 key now releases so that now I can draw on any other grid. Now here's the second shortcut for you, the F4 key. I can make my 0, 0 origin anywhere that I want by tapping and releasing the F4 key. Now just by default, it just automatically put the origin at the corner here. So I can type in XYZ values here based on that corner there. But if I wanted to move that, I can put the cursor over here. I tap the F4 key. That's my 0, 0 origin. If I put it over here, I tap F4. Or I put it down here, I tap F4. So anytime I tap the F4 key, that's my 0, 0, 0 origin. So I can type any numbers in relative to that. So now you can see I can just type in X and Y value for the starting position of the rectangle, type in a length and width value, and then I can punch that through the object. All right, so that's just another way of being able to get doors and windows into your walls. Now here's the third method. This is the method that I use most often. And this is using window components. And the window components will automatically punch a hole in there for you. So you don't have to define the hole, which is sort of nice. But you do have to have an actual window to place in there, though. So let's briefly look at how these window components work. We can use the Place Window tool. All right, and bonzai3d comes with a bunch of windows and doors that are already set up for you. So let's go to our window library. We'll just pick the window that we want. And I can just take that window and click anywhere on that wall or any solid object. And you notice that when I place that window, it automatically punches a hole through that wall for me. Okay, so that's nice. What else can we do with these window components? Well, if you look at the options here, you can reposition that window. So we can go in, click that window and drag it. So if I drag it, you can see the hole is following along with it. It's like one single item, and the hole is part of that window. And if I use the copy option with the reposition window tool, you can see I can place that window one time, then use the reposition tool to copy that multiple times. Okay, now some other things we can do with these windows is if I were to pick these windows, I can change the actual style of it. So I'm going to pick this window or hold the shift key and pick multiple windows if I want. If you look in the tool options, here's the parameters for what I have picked. And that's the style of window that we have currently there. So now if I want to choose a different style window, I can just take a different style window, drag and drop it onto that little icon there, and you can see that it's automatically changing everything that's picked to the new style of window. The hole changes, now it's a curved hole, it has an arc on top and things like that. And the last thing is that if we delete a window, it's going to delete not just the geometry but also the hole that's associated with that. So that's a real neat quick way to be able to play with different variations and styles of windows and quickly get those openings into the wall. And of course you can numerically type in values of where those windows are too. Now, With that, let's see how we actually did the windows in this project here. Well, I looked at the windows that were there, and they didn't have the style that I wanted, so I had to create my own. And so the windows that are created here, I created myself, and it's real easy to create these. I don't have time to show it because of the short duration of our webinar today, but at the end, if there's any questions, I can show you more information about this. But there's a Create Window tool. You can see if you were to right-click on any tool and choose the manual option, it brings up the manual. It takes you right to that page, tells you step by step how to actually do that. The other option that I like is if I right click on the tool, I can choose the view video option, and what that's going to do is show you a short little video, shows you step by step how to create windows and place windows and things like that. So that's a real good resource to be able to quickly see how easy it is to create these windows. And so once we create those, we have those added to our own custom window library that we have here. So let's place those into our wall. What I did in this project was I used the guide method. What I did was I just put some guides here. Since I've already extruded those walls, I already have the locations on my wall of where those windows need to be placed. So let's put a couple guides there. I put a guide on the bottom down here. And of course, when I looked at the actual drawing, I knew that that window was 2'9" up, so I moved that guide up 2'9". I have the guides in the proper place. So of course, it's going to punch the hole in for me when I'm using a window component. So I need to get rid of these gaps that are here. So I'm going to take these walls and union those together to make it one single solid wall. And now all I need to do is use the Place Window tool, pick the window that I want, that I created it, and then I'll just snap to the intersection of those two guides. And there's the window right there. And of course, we can put doors in there, things like that. Okay, and that's how easy the doors and windows work. So now, we can move those around, copy them, and change the style if we want also. So that, in a nutshell, is some different ways for doors and windows and things like that. So let's cover a few other areas here. Speaking of components, there's also just a plain type of component, which is any number of objects that you combine together to create a component that can be placed in your scene. A couple examples of that would be using the Place Component tool. All it is just a bunch of objects, and Bonsai comes with a bunch of components. There's people, trees, furniture, things like that. And to place these in the scene, just sort of choose the one that you want, and we can place it in the scene here. Now, this is a 2D flat plane, so a neat little option we can use for that is the Align with View option. This is good for 2D billboard type of components or objects. Maybe a picture of a tree on a 2D plane, and you always want that object to look at the camera angle. That's what the Align with View option does. So if I place a 2D component right there, you can see that if I were to change my view, you can see that no matter where I look at my model from, that 2D component will always be looking at the current camera angle. Now I'm spinning this pretty fast. You might not get a live spin, what you're seeing on your end, but trust me, if you're on your own machine, of course, it's going to spin in real time. All right, now if we want to place some 3D type of components, we can see that we want to place maybe a 3D piece of furniture. So let's go, this bathroom, kitchen, living room. Let's maybe place a chair. You can see that we probably don't want that chair to always be moving. So we don't want the Align with View option, but we do want to dynamically rotate it when we place it to make sure it's orientated in the proper place. But let's look at the drawing file. The 2D plan had a furniture layer here, so I turn that on. We can see that there's some furniture that's been spec'd out in the 2D plan, so I can just sort of zoom into that area. I can place my component. Oops, zoom a little too far there. Place it right there, and we have the dynamic rotation to spin it around anywhere that we want. And that's how easy it is to take those existing entourage items and just sort of place them in your scene. What if we don't have in our library the type of component that you want? Well, here's a real quick way to add components to your own personal type of component library, and that's this Import Component button. What you do is you click on that, and you import any file. So you download, you go on the internet, you go to Google 3D Warehouse, you go to Anderson Windows, whatever, and you download the file. It supports all of these formats. So all you have to do is pick the file, you click open. It'll give you some options to change stuff if you want of how it's imported. I leave everything at defaults here, and you can see everything comes in, and it creates that component for you. It's ready to be placed. So now we can just simply take that and place that imported component as part of my library anywhere in that file. So it's pretty easy, huh? All right, with that, that's about it for the component part. Let's build some stairs. We said we were going to look at the stairs, so let's find out where those stairs are. We look at the layers palette over here. Let's see, stairs right there. And there's some information there in the 2D plan for that. How does the stair tool work? Well, I'm going to show you. The stair tool is in the specialty suite of icons here. So let's click on the stair tool, and all we do is we click on a path. A path can be any spline, a vector line, maybe back and forth vector line, however you want. This 2D plan just has a single vector line, so I can draw it myself or just click on that vector line that was brought in with the 2D plan, and it generates a set of stairs. Now, with those stairs, we can modify those, so I can drag the height, so I can snap to the top of the wall, so the height of the stairs matches the top of the wall. The width of the stairs, I can drag that, and you can see that I can dynamically make that any size that I want. And if I want, I can snap it right to the corner of the wall there to make sure that I'm snapping to that geometry, so I know the width of the stairs and the height of the stairs are at the proper height, or at the proper values. Now, of course, I can also change stuff in the tool options palette. So you can see here's the height, here's the type of stair. We can make it a beam stair. I change something here, it automatically updates in that 3D object. We can add some railings if we want, a couple of railings on there, so on and so forth, and make any changes that we need. For example, let's spin around here. We can see that we've made it perfectly flush with the top of the wall, and we really want to go one step higher to make a landing here. So what we'll do, we'll go to the options. Here's the height for that stair, so let's add 8 inches to it because the riser height's 8 inches, so it's 10 feet now. Let's type in 10 foot 8, and enter. It automatically updates those stairs to that value. All right, so if we want to build some kind of landing on there, and of course, obviously, we can use the extrude tool, not just on 2D shapes to pull them up into 3D, but we can just click on any object, the face of an object, and extrude that to make a brand new object there. So give it the length that we want. And then, of course, we want to reshape the existing object by using the reshape tool, snap it to the wall over here to make sure that landing is at the proper size, and so on and so forth. So that gives you some idea of how the actual stair tool works. We also have spiral stairs, so just click any blank area, it'll generate spiral stairs with all the same parameters for you. All right. The last thing I wanted to show was the actual roof. Let's see how that was created. What I did was I did a file import, and I took the drawing, which was the drawing of the roof plan, and I'm going to change some settings here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to use the add to project option. What that's going to do is instead of importing that file as a separate project, I want to import it and add it to the current project that I'm in right now. So what I'll do is I'll use add to project, and I'm going to change one other setting here. I'm going to import the roof plan as a reference object. So instead of a bunch of vector lines and splines that I can use as a bunch of separate objects, it's going to just bring it in as a single object that I can actually reference. I can snap to it, I can measure it, I can trace over it, but it's not a bunch of separate objects. So it's more of an organizational tool. So let's click OK. So you can see it brings it in, it adds it to this project, and if I go to pick it, you can see it's a single object. It's not separate objects on different layers. So first thing we need to do is move that to the proper height. So I use the move tool. I can grab the corner here and drag it up. You can see, perpendicular or parallel by tapping and releasing the command key on Mac or the control key on Windows. So I'm going perpendicular, snapping to the top of the wall, and now my roof plan is at the proper elevation. Now, what I need to do is create the actual roof, and here's a neat way to sort of clear out a lot of the geometry that we have here and just focus just on the part of the design that we're on. I could turn layers on and off if I want, or here's the option I like to use very often is I pick the objects that I'm currently working on and I use the isolate objects option. So now when I choose that, there's a key shortcut for that, but I'm just going to show you in the pull down menu where that is. I choose that option and it isolates everything except for what is picked. So now you can see I can work on just those objects. All right, and I can reveal all those objects later on and bring them back. Now the first thing I want to do is get rid of these guidelines. We don't need those anymore, so let's use the delete tool. Or I could put those on a separate layer and turn those off if I know I want to use those later, but let's get rid of those for now. How does the roof tool work? Well, you click on any boundary, any shape, and it'll try to generate an actual roof from that. So what we're going to do is use the outside boundary of this existing roof plan. So use a vector line. It's a 2D vector line. We're not inserting it into anything. So I'm just going to snap to that existing imported file. Of course, like I said, even though it's a single object, it really is lines and curves in there, but you can't access them as separate objects. So we can snap and measure to the different parts of it. So I'm going to trace the outside boundary, and there's my 2D shape. So now with that 2D shape that we have, I can choose the roof tool, which is right here, located in the specialty suite of icons. I click on that face. Now this could be a face of a solid object or just a 2D shape like we have there. And there it is. Voila. It is now done. Well, actually it's not done because we need to change a few parameters. We can modify any of these parameters here to change the actual slope. We can make it a gable, hip roof, change the fascia height. I believe from the drawings that was like 3 inches. Now the overhang, I'm going to set that to 0 because that outside boundary that I traced, that already had the overhang in it. So I want to make sure the overhang's 0 so it matches that 2D outside boundary exactly. And there we go. We're now done. All right. Now, actually, we're not completely done because there's an opening here where the second story comes through this roof. So we need to trim out the section where the second story comes through. So let's do that by picking on our reference object one more time. We'll use the isolate feature again. So we have just that object there. So we've actually isolated twice now. And so now I want to trace just that second floor. All right. So there's the walls. Here's the tracing of the balcony. And of course, I probably want to zoom in, make sure I'm clicking on the right point there, but I'm just trying to speed things up here. So make sure we get a little shape there. Okay, now there's our 2D shape, which defines the volume or space of that second story section. So what I'll do is use the reshape tool, take that 2D shape and reshape that up into a 3D solid object. So now what we do is use the reveal option. There's a key shortcut for that too. It reveals everything that we isolated previously, and now you can see it brings that stuff back. Now these are solids, so of course we can use the Boolean operations to subtract or difference one object from the other. So I can click on the roof and subtract this volume of the second story from it. And it might help if I give that roof a separate color here to sort of see that as a separate object. And now we can see that that roof line matches perfectly to the perimeter of the second story wall there. Okay. All right, now that's pretty much took me 20 minutes or so to build this much of it. The first introductory slideshow was 5-10 minutes, spent about 20 minutes modeling here. And I think that's enough to give you a good idea of how we take these drawings and convert them into a 3D model. Okay, and actually when I go back and look at that model, everything that we've done up to this point are all the tools and features that we actually use. So building the second story is the same techniques we use for the first floor. The window components are on top, there's the roof, and just using the reshape tools to build some of the other parts. And really there's no other new tools I use. I mean, just that small handful of tools was used to build the rest of this model. Of course, we put some materials and render it and things like that. And there is a clipping planes tool that you can actually turn on to dynamically move planes through your model if you want. We can show that afterwards at the question and answer session if you want. But at this point, that was all the material that I wanted to show today with just those handful of features there. What I'd like to do is thank you for your time today. And like I said, this is just a few of the features. There's many more features. There's many more presentations that are out there. If you go to our website, we are now done. You can log out whenever you want. But I'll stick around for as long as it takes to answer any questions that you have. So type those questions in, send them in. I'll read those out loud, and I'll try to answer those for you. With that, I'd like to thank you, and have a nice day.